Hello everyone, it's Karen here from Stampin with Karen Spreckley. Thank you for joining me today and happy Monday, at least I hope it is, and hope you all had a lovely weekend and have a great week ahead. Today I'm going to be making a couple of cards for you using the A Good Man stamp set. This stamp set is in our annual catalogue and it's absolutely brilliant. I really love the images and the sentiments. I think the artist is probably the same artist who did Beautiful You, if you're familiar with it, and also Wonderful Moments. It's got some really lovely artwork in those stamp sets as well. So I'm just going to tidy up my desk a little bit, pop these things to one side until I'm ready to use them, and then we'll get started. I'm just going to pop that card up there for some inspiration for me. So I'm going to use the image of the man sat on his deck chair because I think that's a really good all-rounder image. You could use that for birthdays, you could use it for all sorts of different things. I'm going to go for the sentiment I've chosen is "It's your day, relax your way." So I'm kind of aiming for a bit of a male theme here. Now, I've coloured my original card in using watercolouring. I used watercolour paper on this one, but actually I didn't need very much water at all, so I'm going to use some shimmery white cardstock this time. So shimmery white is also available from the Stampin' Up catalogue, and as usual all of the supplies that I'm using are available in the links below, and also if you head on over to my blog, all the information's over on there as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp my image on shimmery white cardstock, and you've probably no chance of picking this up in the camera, but it's got a very slight tint to it, and it holds water really well. If you look, it's a slightly different shade to our Whisper White. It's very slightly creamier, a little bit more ivory coloured, but it's close enough and it works really well. Because I'm going to use a bit of watercolouring, I'm going to use StazOn ink. This is a solvent based ink and it is waterproof when dry, so that means that it will not bleed when I stamp my image. So I'm going to stamp it sort of about there. There we go, lovely crisp dark image. And StazOn's lovely, it smells like a marzipan. And when you get it, you get this little protective cover. Don't throw that away. You actually need that to help stop the ink drying out, because it's solvent based, it can dry out quite quickly. Now I want to cut my image out to go on my card today. So I'm going to use the Stitch Shape dies. Awesome set of dies, these, an absolute must-have I think if you're a beginner crafter and you've got your hands on a die cutting machine, because you get the lovely stitch detail around them, but you also get 4 oval shapes, 4 circle shapes and 4 square shapes. I'm going to be using the largest oval today to cut my image out, so I'm just going to reach over and grab my big shot. So, it's absolutely covered in bits of paper. Need to give it a bit of a dust. So these dies will work with any die cutting machine that you happen to have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my image on my platform there, and I'm going to place it onto my stamped image where I would like it, place my die, put my second cutting platform on, then I'm going to roll this through, and apologies if it makes the camera jiggle a little bit, I'll try and do it as steady as I can. Put my big shot to one side out of our way, and now put my piece of shimmery cardstock out of the way. So now I've got my man die cut out lovely with in the stitched shape. So I'm now going to bring in some inks and also my aqua painter. If you're not familiar, an aqua painter is a water colouring brush that has its own barrel of water which free flows down to the tip there. Stampin' Up, we sell them in a pair. you get that tip, and you also get one with a much thicker tip. So to colour in my man, I'm going to use Blushing Bride for a skin tone. I'm going to use Sahara Sand for the sand that his deck chair is sitting on. I'm going to use some Night of Navy for his shorts and hat, and a little bit on the deck chair. The basic greys for the next card. Right, I'll just grab my chair and sit down. Now, there are several ways that you can use your ink pads to watercolour with. If you give them a really, really good squeeze like this, you should transfer a little bit of your ink over into your lid. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one, and I also like to have a rag or a cloth or a tissue nearby when I'm doing watercolouring, so that I can clean off my brush, or if I get a little bit too much water. So what I'm going to do, my image will be nice and dry now because StazOn dries nice and quickly. I'm going to pick up some of the ink from my ink pad, and I'm just going to paint with it. So I'm going to paint in the hat. I'm afraid I'm not going to teach you any fancy painting techniques. So I'm no watercolour artist, but I'm okay using my Stampin' Up supplies and my stamps to get a watercoloured look. And I really do like a watercolour look. I think it's, I don't know, there's just something about it that I really, really like. You can layer it up, so you can end up with sort of different tones, or you can end up with it a bit darker if you want to. I don't know, it's just a really nice look that I like. I'm going to go for quite a concentrated ink colour now, and I'm going to paint one of the stripes there on the deck chair. I think I'm going to go down under his arm here as well, and that can be a dark deck chair stripe. And also I think let's go down this side under his arm, that side, and we'll have a dark deck chair stripe down that side as well. Going to go back in now and just get some lighter ink, and I think this sort of shadowy bit behind the chair I'm going to do in a much lighter ink. There's no right or wrong way to do this, you can just do whatever you fancy. And I'm going to go in and just make the alternate stripes on the deck chair a much lighter colour. There we go. So now what I'm doing is I'm squeezing some water through the barrel of my aqua painter and through the nib to clean off any blue ink that might be sitting on there. And I can close the Night of Navy ink pad now. So we'll go in for a little bit of sand. So I'll close my ink pad and give it a really good squeeze to transfer some of the ink over into the lid, and then that gives me a painting palette. So I'm just going to have a light bit of Sahara Sand, and I just want to use this to create a bit of a wash down at the bottom here to give the impression that this chap, his deck chair, he's sitting on the sand. So that's it, that's all. Oh, it's a little bit pale actually. I might go in with a slightly stronger impression of the colour there, and especially under his chair, because that's where we're going to have some shadows forming, and that's where it will be a little bit darker. Okay, so back to my rag, clean my brush through, and now I'm going to go in with some Blushing Bride, which I think makes quite a good colour for a skin tone, but I'm only going to do it very, very light. So I just take a little bit, add some water to that, just to make a really, really light wash colour, and then we'll go over his skin. I'll hold this up a bit closer to the camera in a moment so that you can actually see. I'll just do his arms there, just do his face. Calypso Coral is another one with very diluted, can make quite a good Caucasian skin tone. Obviously, if you want to do a different skin tone, then you can just choose the right colour that's right for you. Some of the browns work quite well as well for darker skin tones. So if I just bring this up to the camera now, and hopefully you can see there where I've painted this chap to make the topper for my card. Okay, so now on to actually making the card itself. I'll just pop my aqua painter out of the way and my cloth. So we're going to start with, where have I put all my bits and pieces? Oh, they're here. So I'm going to use a balmy blue card base. So I've taken a sheet of A4, I've cut it in half, scored it in half, and that makes my card base. I've got a piece of Whisper White here that I've cut half a centimetre shorter and narrower in both directions, and this is going to be for the centre of my card, and that's where I'm going to put my sentiment on this occasion. Sometimes I put the sentiment on the outside, but today I'm putting it on the inside. So I've lined these up on my blocks by laying them face down and then picking them up on my block, and this is to give me the best chance possible of getting a nice straight sentiment on the inside of my card. So I'm going to tap 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 on my ink pad, and then fingers crossed this is fairly straight. You'll probably see this better than I will because you're overhead, and there we go, I've stamped "It's your day, relax your way." What a really lovely sentiment. So I can now put my ink pad away. So I'm going to stick that to the inside of my card with a little bit of liquid glue. So I tend to go all the way around the edge and then a light scribble down the middle. Very, very strong glue, so you don't need tons and tons. So let's just go around there. And for the front of my card, I've cut a panel, which is, I'm going to have to reach for a ruler because I can't remember my measurements. No, I've written them on the back. Yes, I've written them on the back. So I want a navy panel and some patterned paper to go in the middle. So my Night of Navy panel, I've actually cut that to 8.5 centimetres wide. So that's 2 centimetres narrower than my card front, but I've cut it all the way down because it's exactly the same length as my card. But I'm not going to stick that down yet. I've also got a piece of patterned paper which I've taken down by another centimetre, so that's, get it the right way up, Karen, so that's 7.5 centimetres, again by the length of your card, which is 14.9. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick that to that. So again, all the way around the outside, try not to put too much on because it'd end up squidging everywhere. So I'm going to line that up so I've got an equal border left and right. I think I've just got the tiniest little bit of overhang there. If you've got that, and if it bothers you, then you can turn it upside down, and with your scissors you can cut along the edge of the cardstock, and you can just trim that off to make it super perfect. Now with my chilling out man, I think I'm going to pop him up on some dimensionals. Just pop off those backings, stick him on. So I'm going to place that there. Now before I stick this down to here, I want to add some ribbon and twine detail, as I've got on my sample there. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my twine. So this is the Sahara Sand and Night of Navy twine, part of the Come Sail Away bundle of products. And I'm also using the denim 1 centimetre ribbon, really nice ribbon. I think this is an awesome for men's projects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them together like this in no sort of particular way. I'm going to hold it so I've got a length going down in front of my card, so that will give me something to tie my knot with. It doesn't need to be too long. Then I'm going to wrap round the back, then come back to the front, let it hang down a bit, and then I'm going to snip that off. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie these two pieces into a knot. Nothing complicated, except I'm getting all cack-handed here. Let me get my strings in the right hands and then I'll feel better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the top one under and I'm going to tie a knot, and then I'm going to do exactly the same thing again to tie myself a knot on the front of the card. This went much easier when I didn't have the camera on me. Always the way, isn't it? Okay, so I've now got some knotted twine and ribbon. You don't want to do it too tight because you don't want your card to buckle. I'm going to trim off some excess. I don't want all of this hanging around everywhere. So by tying a knot, it's a way you can add ribbons and trims to a men's card without it being too fussy. And now I am going to stick this down to my card front with some wet glue. So I'm going to go round the edges and scribble down the middle, and then I just need to line this up so that it is in the middle of my card. So if I stand it up, I can get it to make sure it's neat along the bottom, and there we go. Oh, now I think feels like it's a bit wonky. No, I think we're all good. So there we go. So that's the first card that I'm sharing with you today. And I've got another card. If you've got a little bit of time, you can hang around with me for a little bit longer. So I'm just going to quickly show you the Come Sail Away papers that I used on that card. So it's a pack of 12, and you get 6 double-sided designs, and you get 2 of each in the pack. I'm stumbling on with my words today. So this is the one I use, and it's got those lovely stripes at the back. Then we've got this lovely stripe here, which has got the coral pattern on the back. So I've done that one. We've got this lovely green stripe that's got some sailboats on the front. We've got the compass designs that have got a world map on the back. We've got this knot design, which has got kind of a newsprint on the back. So they're the ones that I've done for that card. Now for the next card, I haven't actually got a sample prepared to show you because I'm just going to wing this one on camera, so to speak. So I'm starting off with a Night of Navy card base. And so this is, again, half a sheet of A4 cardstock cut in half and scored in half. And I've got 2 pieces of Whisper White that are cut 1/2 centimetre shorter and narrower than my card base. So what I'm going to do here, one of them I'm going to stamp for a background, and the other one, as before, is going to be the insert for my card, and I'm going to use exactly the same greeting because I think this is going to be a really good greeting to use for some of my male birthday cards. So it's your day, relax your way, and hopefully without getting my head in your way on camera, I will stamp that reasonably straight to go inside my card. So I will stick that down, pop that in with my Tombow glue around the edges, scribble down the middle. You don't need loads, it's really strong stuff. It lasts ages, but I would advise storing it upside down in a little cup or a little pot to make the most of it. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a background for the front of my card, and to do that I'm going to use one of our background stamps, and I'm going to use the birch stamp, and I think this just looks really good, and it's a stunning background for men's cards. So the background stamps are big. They come like this. There is a sticker you can put on the back if you want, so there are several ways of using it. You could use it on a big block, but that is a bit heavy and a bit cumbersome, to be quite honest. Well, I think it is anyway. Or You could use it in a Stamparatus or a stamp positioning tool, or you can use it face up on your desk, and I'll be honest, that's my preferred method of using them. Now if you just bear with me, I just need to tear my grid paper off of my panel because I need to be able to fold it over when I'm doing this kind of card. So I'm going to lay my cardstock panel down there. I've got my basic grey ink because my smoky slate is packed away ready for Let's Get Creative next weekend, so I haven't got that one handy. So I'm going to ink up my background stamp, and because it's basic grey and I actually want a pale grey, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off some of that ink onto my grid paper because I only want this to stamp quite lightly. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my cardstock on top of my stamp. Then I'm going to fold my grid paper over and I'm going to rub it again. And that will help some of the ink from the stamp transfer over onto my piece of cardstock and give me a really lovely sort of weathered wood type background. I'm going to use my cloth to just give this a quick clean, and then I'll pop it out of the way and I'll clean that afterwards. I'll turn my grid paper over. I've got two sides, don't need to waste it. So this is now going to form the background of my stamped image, and I am then going to add another stamped and coloured in image to my card front. So I've got one ready prepared there, or should I go for, no, this time I think I might go for a circle. So if you can just bear with me quickly again while I quickly colour this in, and the colouring in is exactly the same as I did the first time. So we've got a bit of brown for the sand, a little bit darker under his chair where there would be shadow. Clean off my brush. Some very pale blushing bride. That will do us quite nicely for a skin tone. So arms, legs and face. And the lovely thing with watercolour actually is you don't even need to go super duper close to the lines or anything. You can just, if you leave some white space, it's actually really quite nice. And his shorts as well, we were going to do those in a navy, weren't we? Did those in a navy. So they're a bit darker than before. And maybe this time, just to change it up a bit, we'll actually have some brown stripes on the deck chair. Why not? It could be any colour we want it, because we're the ones creating the piece of artwork here. So we decide what colour we want things. But I'll perhaps still do the very pale blue for this sort of underside of the chair, if you like, and then maybe I'll do a very pale blue on the other stripes. Okay, so that's very, very quickly coloured our man in there. So that was literally just 2 minutes. You don't have to take hours and hours. It's absolutely fine. You can just give it a nice quick once over. Just going to set that aside to dry while I do the same ribbon and twine trick around our background piece of card. So I'm going to take my, it's alive, it's trying to roll off the desk. So I'm going to take my ribbon and my twine. I'm going to wrap it around my card, give myself a little bit to play with to get it tied up into a nice knot. I'm going to turn it upside down because that seemed to work for me last time. I'm going to take my strings and my ribbons, and I'm going to tie it in a single knot, and then we're going to tie it in a double knot so it stays nice and secure. Okay, trim off the excess little pieces. Don't want quite that much hanging off, do we? then we can sort of fiddle and poke that down the card a little bit. I'm going to pop our image up on dimensionals, pop off those backs. So this is watercolour card because they were some images that I had pre-stamped, but if you want to do it on shimmery white card, then you certainly can. And then I'm going to stick this together with some of our Tombow multi-purpose adhesive. Let's keep that nice and secure on the front of our card. So just make sure that's got a nice even border all the way round. Just press in there to make sure that glue's nice and stuck, especially around the ribbon and the twine, because that will create a little bit of extra resistance in the background. So there's the one card that we've made today, and there's the second card that we've made today. So we've used the same image but a couple of different looks, one with a stamped background and one with a designer series paper background. Thank you for joining me. It's very much appreciated. If you want to purchase any of the products that I've used today, then you can head over to my online store and you can find this video and some photos and some other information over on my blog, and all the links are below in the description bar. Thank you very much. Bye bye.